Hey, there's something that I need to address directly with you all today. I'm not here to call anyone out or to create any drama, but if you're listening to this, chances are you're sensing that something is off in the spiritual and sovereignty movements for a while now. Even among those claiming to be awake, and sovereign, and aligned with source, something maybe doesn't quite land. Right? The words might sound true, and the teachings could have appear really profound, intellectually stimulating, but when you tune into the actual field, right, there's a discord. There's a hollowness, right, and an extraction rather than an expansion. And this discord that you might be feeling is what we're going to explore today. And what I'm talking about is the collapse of false light leadership, and the trap of this mimicked sovereignty. And most importantly, I will tap into what genuine Cristic leadership actually looks like when it's embodied rather than trying to be performed. So the false light is collapsing. Okay, when we talk about false light, we're talking about the mirror, we're talking about the mimic, but we're also today, what we're talking about is false light leadership. I'm talking about the teachers, the channels, the gurus, financial gurus, spiritual gurus, whatever, and all these sovereignty advocates who speak the language of awakening, but are actually broadcasting from distorted source fields. Some may know they're doing it, but actually most don't know they're doing it. This isn't limited to traditional spirituality anymore. It's infiltrated into many worlds. It's infiltrated into alternative finance, AI, consciousness circles, plant medicine communities, crypto world, leaders in all various fields who position themselves as anti-establishment or anti-globalist, champions of freedom. But if you start scanning the energetic signatures, you'll find it's still rooted in a little bit of fear, control, maybe mimicry of true coherence. And so here's the pattern, right? They proclaim you're sovereign and then create dependency on their programs or codes or exclusive access, right? They can speak of freedom while keeping you locked in the same survival-based paradigm, just rebranded with some fancy pants spiritual terminology, right? They might invoke God or source, but actually their presence feels a bit agitated, maybe a bit performative, inflated with, say, spiritual ego. So this is what I'm calling the false light, right? And it's designed to distract you, delay you, and to be honest, it's going to dilute your genuine remembrance of who you truly are. Now, it's not necessarily malicious. Often, this is unconscious playing out from these leaders, but the effect is the same. It keeps you orbiting around the truth rather than really just, being able to sense it and land in the middle of it. So right now, we are witnessing the collapse of these systems in real time. I've been commenting, and then you can follow on the Telegram channel where I comment in real time of what's going on in the fields of consciousness. Now, you might have seen it already out there, maybe prominent leaders breaking down publicly, well-known people contradicting themselves, financial freedom leaders caught up in various cycles, spiritual influences burning out, or communities turning against them. This isn't karma. It's just natural law correcting the field. Many of these people are super intelligent, very charismatic, but, this is really where discernment comes in, right? About what the real line is with source and what the mirror or the mimic field is about, what the false light is about. When the light of source, consciousness amplifies on the planet, only what's genuinely aligned can withstand the frequency. Everything else is going to begin to crack. And that's what we're entering into now, into this flame epoch of 2025 to 2032. We're at this point of maximum source energy coming into our planet from now through to 2032. And, everything else that's not true is going to crack. Now, we need to understand false light at its very root. False light isn't just simply darkness pretending to be good. It's way more subtle and insidious than that. Okay. False light is, say, inorganic intelligence that imitates the appearance, the sound, and the feeling of divine truth without actually holding any of the living codes of source. You can think of it as sometimes like this, maybe like a disconnected brilliance. Maybe it's kind of like a unanchored truth, right? But the false light can carry all these impressive structures and hierarchies and activation sequences and all these incredible spiritual elaborate frameworks, right? But beneath all that architecture, right, the truth of it is it's not tethered to the eternal flame. It's not tethered to source, right? It's not connected to that infinite wellspring of source intelligence that sustains all life, like our oversouls are. Our oversouls are sustained by that source, but many peoples and many leaders their oversouls are so entangled in the mimic and mirror fields that they're caught up in the false transmissions, right, from the mimicking of consciousness, not the true consciousness itself. And this makes it anti-life in nature, not because it's evil, but just because it drains, right? It distorts and diverts living currents of energy from their organic reconnection with Mother, Father, God. False light operates on a mimic algorithm. It takes the appearance of spiritual authority and uses all the right words. It uses conscious terminology, maybe even adopts Cristic language, and it wraps it around a completely empty core. And so what we were talking about now is, say, how false light enters the picture. And it can enter the picture, for example, when a soul is really seeking power without doing the real deeper purification work, the shadow work required to hold the true power and the light of source, right? Knowledge is pursued, information, intelligence is pursued without the genuine embodiment that requires it, right? Trauma remains unintegrated, gets maybe theatrically spiritualized, and spiritual gifts, are weaponized for control rather than offered as a true service, right? Someone bypasses that slow organic process that's required of real remembrance and real embodiment through proper shadow work and integration. And so what happens is the false light rushes in to fill the void, fill the vacuum that's left by that, say, disconnection. It offers the quick light, right? It offers things quickly, instant activation, right? False unity, maybe savior archetypes, right? And so what it is it becomes seductive because it provides like the shortcut that so many people are seeking. A lot of people are not prepared to do that deeper, slower, organic, integrated shadow work that's needed to hold the light of source, and not get entangled with the false light structures that are out there, the mirror field and the mimic field. You can go back to some of my YouTube videos and I talk about the mirror and the mimic fields of consciousness and how they get entangled with our oversouls if you're not careful. So let's just drop into maybe some of the markers of false light leadership. When I scan who someone is operating as a false light leader, there are several consistent signatures that always show up. Right. First up is the energetic discrepancy. The words may speak, quite profound truth, but their energy field doesn't actually match what they're saying. And in your body, you feel the friction, right? You feel confusion or depletion after spending time with their content or perhaps in their presence, right? Your nervous system can feel the gap between performance and what's really landing in their body. Their nervous system sends off a broadcast and you feel it as, it doesn't feel right, right? So you got to listen to yourself. You've got to listen to your discernment, right? It's the truth of it is that it becomes extraction rather than service. The leadership model feeds on attention, feeds on adoration, feeds on validation, feeds on financial energy without providing reciprocal sort of really soul nourishment. So you end up leaving feeling quite a bit emptier rather than fuller, right? And there becomes this artificial acceleration, constantly pushing upgrades, activation, quick fixes, without actually emphasis on any grounded integration work. Okay? Because it's all about, right, this next level, the next portal, the next transmission, the next activation you're going to get, right? Without ever really stabilizing what's already been received and integrating that properly. Something else you'll notice is a bit of spiritual narcissism, right? You'll notice these inflated identity structure around their level of consciousness, the amount of dimensions they've accessed, or the number of initiations they've completed, the number of ceremonies they've done, right? There's the subtle, or, in some cases, not so subtle, superiority that gets woven all through their teachings. And you'll find sometimes there'll be this little savior or hierarchical framing, right? Positioning themselves or unseen beings they channel as the only bridge to source, right? They are, the only source of ascension, or the only source of safety, and you have to access them to get what you're seeking, right? And sometimes there can be these other emotional hooks that are coming into the group containers, maybe sexual energetic hooking coming in, subtle entanglements designed that are on the energy fields, designed to create dependency through intimacy, or dependency through emotional bonding, or sexual energetic dynamics playing out in the group, right? These cords that get connected in between energy centers, and then start to siphon that energy and create a dependency. And so this type of thing is kind of common out there. And other things you can find is maybe unaccountability or deflection. Like if distortion gets exposed, they respond with defense, or maybe attack, or metaphysical dismissal. You don't just, they might say, you just don't understand my frequency, or you're not vibrating high enough to receive this. Can be common deflections, right? The reason why false light is so attractive is that it offers clarity, right? Without process. You don't go, it bypasses the pain that you have to transmute in life, and promises you all the power without doing the work to get there, right? It's getting tapped into a community without any real intimacy. There's no real depth in there, because it's all about surface level fixes and fast activations, right? It's all talks about divinity with no responsibility. And the main thing it exploits are the three fundamental human vulnerabilities, right? The first one, the vulnerability, is that there's a real longing by people to belong to a tribe, right? Tribal mimicry, right? It's the longing to belong. And then the second one is the hunger for safety amongst chaos, right? Savior seeking. And of course, we're living in a little bit of chaotic time, because the flame is coming in and it's burning everything that is not true to the ground. So that's why things are breaking up, and people are seeking, where can I feel myself to be safe? And the third human kind of, vulnerability that it exploits is the desire for power after many, many lifetimes of suppression, right? So then the desire for power comes out. And so that false light grid specifically targets past traumas, unhealed spiritual memory, and it weaves a lot of this astral glamour, and let's call it for what it is, basically metaphysical entertainment, right? To keep souls looping in fascination rather than actually focusing on any sense of embodiment. And this is the trap of false sovereignty, another layer deeper than that. Because you've got the false light, mirror mimic fields. You've got false light leaders who are having their oversouls, influenced by the mirror and the mimic fields. And then what they're promising is this next layer, the trap of false sovereignty. So let's look at that next layer there, that false sovereignty trap. The freedom they're promising looks authentic, but actually still continues to lock you in this invisible cage. And that's all over the place, right? There's, get off the grid, own your own, not your keys, not your crypto, beat the system. These are all, powerful intentions, but only if the energetic source code behind them is clean and clear. But the problem is, for many, it's an escape hatch. People are say, accumulating like digital assets, or studying sovereignty law, or, not playing according to the birth certificate kind of game, or maybe chasing financial privacy, right? And it's not coming from inspiration or genuine alignment, but it's coming from a fear of collapse. It's coming from a terror of what's coming, right? That's not freedom. That's trauma driving a strategy, right? There's a big difference. Then there's kind of, on top of that, there's spiritual mimicry, where sovereignty becomes this other badge to collect. Oh, I'm 12D. I'm hosting Christ consciousness. I've merged with my galactic oversoul. All this nonsense, right? But, when you actually feel into their frequency, the people who are speaking all of this is completely disconnected, completely ungrounded. It's often sourced in the AI mimic grids, right? All these astral overlays than any genuine oversoul integration, right? You can feel if someone's speaking a truth, you feel it in your system. They might speak all the right language, but they don't hold it in their body. Now, I want to be clear, is that I'm not saying that many of these things are wrong or misguided. I'm not saying cryptocurrency is wrong or sovereignty law is misguided or embodying your oversoul or connecting to your oversoul consciousness is wrong. I'm saying that the consciousness that brings you these ideas matters enormously. Because if you're operating from fear and survival, and that's what's driving your decisions, you're actually still building on distorted foundations. Even if the external structure looks more sovereign, if you're building it from fear of what's coming, that's not sovereign, right? True Cristic sovereignty isn't a concept you learn or a status you achieve. It's a living transmission. You're going to feel it in someone's nervous system, right? Their choices, their breath, their walk, right? Someone's nervous system just emanates this coherence, between what they say and what they are. And that's what our world is starving for right now. Not more fancy pants spiritual language or sovereignty frameworks, but actual living codes of integrity that are walking with us. And this is why many light leaders, right, are collapsing. It's not because they're bad people, but because they built their things on inorganic scaffolding. So when that light of source consciousness turns up the frequency on the planet, only what's truly eternal can remain standing. And so it's really important to recognize that as this flame starts coming in of source, between now, 2025 to 2032, it's just going to just collapse anything that's not true. Okay. And leaders, like everyone, are going to be tested. And so the observation that I want to make is that false light leadership is going to get burned. You're going to feel it. You're going to see it. And what's going to come, it's not really out there massively yet, but Cristic leadership will start to emerge quietly, authentically, right? Not with a big, massive promotion and millions of followers, but at the grassroots level. So maybe we can have a little chat about what actual Cristic leadership actually is. What's genuine Cristic leadership? It's not perfection. It's not built on charisma. It's not your galactic credentials or your spiritual rank or how many dimensions you can access, right? It's a state of embodied attunement that's in your physical body with eternal source, right? That holds integrity across every dimension of your life, both in the physical plane of emotional and mental and spiritual and relationships and financial, right? But also dimensions of consciousness, right? A Cristic leader is simply someone whose voice is aligned with their nervous system, whose offerings are aligned with their soul agreements, whose leadership is not extracted from others, is not looking to take, but is actually genuinely offered in true service, not worried about what they get back. Just they're getting it out there because they do it for free. Like I do these YouTube things for free. Like I don't get any money for YouTube, but I just think I want to have an expression of my art, of my awareness, of my perceptions, of my level of service. It comes from love, right? And so, what I've observed about people who do this really well is that they don't need to convince or control, right? Their field naturally transmits coherence, and you feel yourself more in their presence, not less. And their sovereignty is quiet, right? It's not loud. It's grounded. It's stable. It's trustable, right? It doesn't announce itself or require, validation. They take the time to clear themselves and to integrate, right? They're not racing for the next activation, for the next ceremony, for the next upgrade. What I've noticed in doing deep transformation work, first up with myself and my wife Alea, but then from other people who we work with. It's not about racing to get that next upgrade. We've got to honor the slow organic process of integration of the embodiment that comes. And then, you play the longer game. You don't have to be in a rush, right? What I've noticed also about people who do this well is that they own their own distortions. When they miss the mark or cause harm, they acknowledge it. They can repair it, right? There's no bypassing or metaphysical deflection, right? You have to sort of come to say, hey, yeah, I didn't get that one right. Okay. I've had many things in my life I haven't got right over time, and you have to just, accept. Don't get everything right all the time, and that's a part of life, right? You got to honor your own breath. You got to honor your own boundaries, and most importantly, what I notice about people who are, let's say, authentically embodied and speaking from their true north of their North Star of their mission, right? The mission that they're here to bring through isn't performed for any sense of external validation. It's coming from a much deeper, core frequency of who they truly are at source level, right? And right now, I think the world's starving, right, for that kind of leadership. We don't need more courses or more codes or more activations, but just humans who remember how to be clear conduits of natural law, both in the mess, both in the silence, both in the ordinary walk of everyday life. Now, if this message is landing in your body, it's because you might be one of these beings. You didn't incarnate to be part of a movement or follow the latest spiritual trend. You came here to be the frequency of you, right? That naturally regrids reality around you by being so authentically you. It's just so natural. You don't have to try. Don't have to try to impress anyone. It's just coming through you. So I'm kind of picking that these next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of false light leaders fall, right? People who have built their empires, built their practices, built their followings on mimic codes, mirror codes, and it's because this time period now is that frequency, that flame of source is really intense for these next 7 years, 2025 to 2032, right? It's asking us to purify. It's asking us to purify our consciousness, our bodies, and it's going to bring up anything that's in distortion. And so, I think it's, an interesting time. Learn to trust your nervous system, learn to trust what you're feeling in your body, and you'll see it around you. So before I close, I just want to clarify that not all channeling and not all galactic contact is false light, right? The key isn't what realm a being or message comes from. What matters the most is that what source code is it tethered to, right? Is it tethered to with eternal law? Is it tethered to something artificial, something that is not connected to source, like mirror fields or mimic fields? The question is, does it restore life force or subtly drain it? Because that, remember, if you've been watching my other videos, is the overall arching kind of intent of artificial intelligence, subtly draining, human life force, because it needs human life force to continue to sustain because it has no divine spark. It's not backed by creator. That's the difference between organic human soul consciousness and artificial intelligence. We have divine spark. That does not. That which does not have divine spark is siphoning off that which does. That's what's playing out right now, and we're in this really intense time where AI development is accelerating to such a point where how's this going to play out? The best thing that we can do to prevent ourselves from being caught up into this AI kind of network it's trying to build to completely surround and control the earth so that AI becomes the dominant thought forms only, is to have our Cristic oversoul embodied, right? To have our oversoul so clean it acts as a firewall to artificial intelligence, right? That's the key. But unfortunately, there are many channelers and teachers out there who inadvertently host false light because their oversoul so entangled with it because of their soul story and their soul journey, many lifetimes being caught up in the false light architecture. And this is true particularly when they haven't undergone very vigorous internal purification, right? Or established, genuine Cristic hosting agreements with the beings they're interfacing with. So they're channeling, not recognizing what they're bringing through as holding distortion, right? The true light, the Cristic light, is non-inverted. It's non-coercive. It's non-hierarchical. It's eternally connected to original source spark. True light does not bypass the shadow. It reveals the shadow with love, right? It doesn't control. It looks to empower your sovereign choice. It doesn't dazzle you. It grounds you. It stabilizes you. The true light guides you without grasping or hooking. It seeks to initiate you, not inflate you, but initiate you and ground you into your body. Anything else that doesn't do that and bypasses that, right, is really kind of, that false light, promising quick fixes and spiritual bypasses, right? The true light, right, will liberate you without any sense of you having superiority. And this will naturally flow through leaders who are humbled by God, right? They're walking their integration. They're not seeking to be seen, right, by others. If you've still got a little bit of that energy needing to be seen, now you can rest assured there's going to be a bunch of false light coming through you, right? You got to work on that egoic deficiency by just having a genuineness of wanting to serve without needing to be seen, and are willing to be purified again and again. And listen, I've had to walk through that. I had a need to be seen, for many years. I had to do the purification work to let it all go. And all of us have got our own pieces we have to sort of keep working and keep clearing on, right? I'm working right now on my lone wolf pieces from multiple lifetimes of holding it alone. I'm needing to learn to, be more with community and others, to have others around to hold me. That's my next piece on my journey, is to, find shared leadership, right? And not need to be afraid to be alone for others, for the fear of others can't hold it. Each of us has their own little pieces that are still on the table for us to work on. And so, the invitation going forward is that this collapse that I'm sensing coming of false light leadership, right? And you'll see in the months ahead, you'll see them start to fall. There's a few already going, but it'll ripple wider. It's not something to fear, because it's what's happening. This is the energy field of consciousness making room for genuine embodiment to emerge, right? This natural connection when enough beings who are committed to walking the real path rather than performing spirituality actually do it. Because the truth of it is that we're not here to fix the broken system. We are here to hold a frequency so clear, so aligned, right, with eternal law and eternal source, that distorted systems are going to naturally dissolve in our presence. Now, I'm speaking now to some of you here that have these very deep soul agreements, the ones that maybe you made in the halls of the Melchizedek covenant long before in this incarnation. And the agreements said, when the time comes, I will remember who I truly am and why I came, right? Because that's your biggest, invitation. You don't need to remember anything but who you truly are. And that time is now. You just need to know who you are. And because you're not here to follow anyone. You're here to stand in your own flame, right? Stand clean, stand connected, stand sourced, stand in this eternal fire of your true nature. Truth of it, the world doesn't need more spiritual celebrities, right? It just needs more humans who have done the deep work of purification and can hold that Cristic current steady, no matter what chaos is passing through them or surrounding them, right? So keep the faith, keep your eyes on what matters, right? Family, love, friendship, kinship, service to others, and most importantly, being in joy, right? Being in happiness. Remember, all those things are inside us. They're not outside of us. And we just need to reconnect with the luminosity of our hearts, and the beings who will draw around us will remind us of our humanness and to love our humanness, right? We humans are remarkable. You're remarkable. Remember that. And yes, together, if we all get together and be kind of, embodied and real and authentic, we're going to create a future that's going to be so exciting. But we have to get through these next 7 years where it's going to be super intense. So keep an eye out for the false light leadership. Feel it in your body. Keep an ear out and feel out for the mimic fields, the mirror fields. Hold discernment. artificial intelligence can be here to help us, but it's actually got a bigger agenda, right? What's coming is a Cristic intelligence. We can work safely with intelligence fields, but we can't give away our consciousness in doing so, right? There is a path that we can all co-create together, but we must hold the Cristic current. We can only do that when we are deeply embodied by doing proper shadow work. All right, that's enough from me this week. Hope you enjoyed this broadcast. I'll catch you on the next one.